So today what I'd like to do is I would like to put the idea to you that our healing process would be faster and easier if it's set inside of a philosophical framework. So let's just be really clear with what we mean by that. Philosophical, almost ideological, but not quite. We need to know why we're doing what we're doing. It's just as important as knowing what we're doing. So I give you the techniques, and then, I've seen this a number of times because I run the experiment with different courses 5 or 6 times now, where I'll give a population, and I'm not being rigorous and scientifically testing this, of course, techniques, and then you get percentages. You'd be like 80% friggin' love this, 10% like this but have reservations, 5% find this extremely triggering, and for another 5%, they're so bewildered they make no progress whatsoever. And I've never been comfortable with that, because when I spoke to other people who work in similar lines of work, or who are counselors and psychotherapists, they're like, these are great numbers. That's great. Let it roll, man. Just let it roll. And I've never been so comfortable with that. I did an interview. I've done 2 good interviews in the last week, if I do say so myself. Self-praise is no praise at all. They tell you they're wrong. They're just wrong. They don't know about my huge brain. I did one with Sean Holden for entrepreneurs. Sean, S-H-A-U-N, Holden, H-O-L-D-E-N. And it was really good. I was awesome, even though I was sunburnt and tired. So that's worth looking at. And then another one I did with Nova Cotton, N-O-V-A-C-O-T-T-O-N, on her YouTube channel. And she focuses on OCD. The interview I did with Sean was about how to coach people and how to build a business coaching as an entrepreneur. The interview with Nova Cotton is she focuses on OCD, but we focused on the inner critic. And I found myself with her coming back again to restating my philosophical position, like, why are we doing what we're doing? And in a sense, I can quote a philosopher here, Nietzsche: if you have a good enough why, you can figure out any how. So I've been thinking today, I know it's dangerous, it's a Sunday, Richie, leave it alone, mate, just take a day off. But I had a deep thought today. It hurt a bit, I'll be honest with you. And I was thinking about martial arts, like back in the day when I used to teach people self-defense, and there was this really strong tendency to try and find solutions that didn't involve me. So there'd be like, I'll let you in on a little marketing secret in the martial arts world. And I learned this from John Carlton, who's a very famous copywriter. And one of the things that made him famous was working in the self-defense marketing industry. And he cracked the code a long time ago, late 90s. And I was like, how's he selling so well in the self-defense space? And what I realized he was doing was he was relying on he's a psychologist. Sorry, he has a degree in psychology. He's not a psychologist. He has a degree in psychology. His name is John Carlton. He would sell people on the idea that the system saves you. So like, if you have a system and you're trained in the system saves you, and it just saves you automatically. And there's this wonderful abrogation of responsibility. And I dig it, I get that. Like, I want that. I think that's the appeal of ideology. That's the appeal of being politically polarized, or, really loving a religion with zealotry, or really loving a particular therapeutic style with zealotry. It means like I just have the cool balm of no thought just poured over my brain and face, and I'm like, oh, I know now. I know what to think, what to feel, how to respond to any questioning of my position. It's prefabricated. The mental virus, the parasite, just sits there like an artificial intelligence and does it for me. And so I think we have to look at this and say, okay, that's a natural tendency. Yeah. So how should I put it? Naively, like a good Hegelian, I'm sure. We have 2 warring tendencies within us, let us say. One is I want to think for myself completely, but it is hard. And I have to make up a new solution every day and every situation. Oh, really? That's your philosophy? There's a guy 2 doors down telling me he's got it all figured out and I don't have to do anything. It's a hard sales pitch. I mean, who are you going to choose? My therapeutic style, my philosophical style, my self-defense system where you have to think and take responsibility? Or do you want the boil in the bag? Do you want the complete system? It has the answer to everything. Guy attacks you with a knife. It's like this, they know what to do. And if it's like this, they know what to do. And if it's 2 guys, 3 ninjas with chainsaws, they know just less. Like this move, and then this move, and they're all dead. It's wonderful, wonderful. I love it. And then on the other side, so you have what should we say? Like a dynamic, ongoing, open source system that's forever in a beta state, that is not complete, that is principles and strategy based and technique second, and then the opposing psychological force, which is towards nothing is in a beta state. It's written. It is written, final, sealed. The ink is dry. The book is closed. Whatever happens, you look here and the answers are here. All of us as human beings, in the face of this, the pressure from above of responsibility will lean this way, myself included. You think I want to figure it out every day when I wake up? You think if you have a genuine philosophy that is rooted in trying to be as non-ideologically infected, trying not to go with the flow, trying to maintain a contrarian, strong boundaried stance in the face of overwhelming propaganda, a zombie apocalypse of ideological infection. It's bloody tiring. I'd rather just join the ranks. I'd rather just bend the knee and just go, nah, just do what everybody else is doing. Where's my team? Over there? These guys? Fine. And it's done. It's over. But I don't believe it works. I think that is death. It's a kind of psychological and spiritual death. So before I say anything to you today, I offer you no easy solutions here. In the next, I will claim to talk for 50 minutes. We both know that's going to be an hour and 20. Why lie to each other? I'm going to try and keep it short. I have another appointment afterwards, so I must keep it short. There's no easy solutions here today, but there are solutions that will work. But we must, if you want what I have to offer you, you need to know that it's not easy and it's not ideological. I've seen online people accusing me of running a cult. And I'm like, well, this would be the weirdest cult in the world, where you're constantly being pushed away from applying, from offering power upwards to the leader, who's constantly pushing it back onto you, and where you're constantly being told to think for yourself. Don't ask me to think for you. I don't know. You must think for yourself. Why don't I know what you should do? Because I don't know day to day what I should do. I do the best I can in the moment that things show up for me, which is part of the philosophy that we'll be looking at developing in just a moment. So the philosophical shift is we're all going to lean to the left. I don't mean politically. I mean in terms of responsibility. I chose sinistre. I chose that side. So we're all going to lean in a direction, the direction of abrogation of responsibility. Are we, because we're rigidly stupid, propagandized, consumerist children? Actually, no, I don't think so. I think it's more just a facet of biology. Like, why would you, if you're Og or Og, and you can go and find the creature and kill it and eat it, do you want to do 100 burpees first and burn a load of calories for no reason? Or are you going to be lazy, which is the modern definition of energy conservation? We call people who naturally have a tendency towards energy conservation lazy. Well, conserving energy is intelligence, I would have thought, and is a positive evolutionary adaptation. Should be trying to make things harder for yourselves. So in a sense, I'm saying trust trust for a moment this philosophical experiment that you're going to do something that at first you're going to be like, I'm not doing that. That's hard. By doing the harder thing, it's easier in the end, I claim. By doing the harder thing, it's so much easier and so much faster in the end, I claim. You're taking a straight route, a straight and sucky route. It sucks. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's not ego soothing. It's not like, oh, you're fine and everything you think is wonderful and you're just so precious. It's going to be like, no, actually, oh, look, I found another way today in which I'm full of shit. Oh, no, I found another way in which I'm a complete fucking hypocrite. Yay, I found another big chunk of ego today. It sucks, but it's better. It's better because when we take responsibility, leaning this way, there is no implicit political bias here. I really shouldn't have chosen right and left like this, but I'm sticking with it now. If I'm leaning this way, which sucks, it's hard, it puts pressure back on me, the individual. I'm in charge. I take care of me. I'm an adult. I'm not looking for a savior. I'm not looking for a guru or a cult or a religion or a new mummy or a new daddy or a priest or anything or an ideology even to save me. I'm like, this is it. It's just me. It's just me and all these other dumb humans here. Okay. Everybody's scared. Everybody's in a state of anxiety. This is one of the things that I've adopted as a personal philosophy as I've grown up is the baseline state of humanity is kind of despair. So the people around you who seem so cool and so together, and the organizations around you and the institutions around you that seem to have it together and seem so powerful, they're full of weird, twitching, eccentric, frightened, maladapted, neurotic, so on and so on and so forth. Just like me, just like you. You're not different. I'm not different. That means we're not special. Well, that sucks because we want to be special. But in another way, it's healthier to get out of that specialness mindset and go, oh, everybody's like this. Everybody talks to themselves. Everybody sings themselves a little song when they're on their own. Everybody does things in some weird way that has no real logical meaning, but it's just part of who they are, so they don't want to let go of it because it seems to be important to hold on to our identity for some reason. That's fine. That's all good. On the other side of this sort of nihilistic existentialism, we can say, okay, we've let go of ideology. Wow, we're big and brave, aren't we? Because it's scary out there. It's windy and it's cold. But we have each other. We don't have a fetish. We don't have an other. We don't have the afterlife. We don't have a sky daddy. We don't, nothing. Just this. Just this. Just this. Just this. Just this. And just each other. And I would claim on the other side of like, once you've gone cold turkey from the ideological infection, you're like, no, not this. I hate this reality. Ah. And you go into the dark night of the soul. When you wake up, you'll be like, you shake it off. And you'll be like, oh, now I feel okay. Well, that anxiety and depression, it's gone. Oh, because you thought you were anxious and depressed. And actually what it is you're trying to carry a burden that you can't carry. It doesn't work. It's never worked for anybody ever in the history of humanity because it's inhumane. People have just got on with tortured lives through carrying these ideological burdens, whether they be political or religious, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anybody who believes in other than this is carrying a burden. And this includes, now, let us bring it to psychology, that includes psychology. Psychology is an ideology. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Come to me, psychologists. I love you. We're brothers and sisters. Don't hate me. I'm not your enemy. I'm going to make you a better psychologist. I'm going to make psychology better. Yes, I am that grandiose because I just don't think it's that hard. Don't turn on me. Don't be mad at me. My intention isn't to ruin you. My intention is to strengthen you and your clients. There is an ideology in psychology, and it doesn't, generally speaking, encourage the adoption of a philosophy that puts the burden of responsibility back on the individual. And it should, because we would get stronger faster that way. There are things that human beings have to do. All human beings have to do. That if we don't do, we develop tics neuroses, little spirals of unhappiness that we then call hashtag mental health issues. And quite honestly, I'm sick of seeing it. And I'm sure many of you, I know for a fact many of you are as well. Hashtag mental health posturing, hashtag mental health virtue signaling, where we've turned suffering, what is essentially a form of suffering, into its own identity, its own stake in the oppression Olympics, and its own way of saying, look at me, give me something. So you want attention and you feel entitled. What personality disorder is that associated with? And then everybody's going, where does the pandemic of narcissism? And I'm like, well, maybe something like that is happening. So I want to talk to you about the inner critic, but I want to talk to you from the point of view of psychology, whilst holding hands with philosophy as we go into this dark tunnel, this labyrinth, and we never let go. And if at any point we feel like we have to let go of philosophy, we don't take that turning. We shouldn't always do this, but we're going to do it today to see what discipline it brings to us and see where it takes us. When we are overcoming from a trauma, there are 3 tips that I give. Tips, my God, there is consumer capitalism ideology at its purest. 3 tips for overcoming human pain. You think so? There's 3 sort of strategies that I offer people, generally speaking. And broadly, they are probably more philosophical than they are psychological. And where they are psychological, it's because they've become prescriptive rather than descriptive. And actually what you need really is good, nuanced descriptions of what you are experiencing and what you can expect, like this one, like the last 17 minutes of 5 seconds. I'm giving you, in my not humble opinion, it's taken me a lot of time and a lot of sweat and blood and tears to come to this. I just pulled it out my ass yesterday. It's a long time of me looking at this one problem. It's actually that the issue is philosophical rather than psychological. And if you know what to expect and you know the correct attitude to enter the fight with, that you will have a superior advantage. In martial arts, nobody who's applied martial arts in the real world is a nerd. Nobody. You get the nerd beaten out of you. What's a nerd? In the martial arts world, a nerd is somebody who puts techniques higher than principles, and they lean to this side that abrogates responsibility. They're like, well, no, because I know Krav Maga and Wing Chun and I'm superior at the trapping range. No, sure, you wouldn't be able to do the thing. And it's like, but you won't be in a fight in the gym in the nice lighting on the floor. It will be some horrible human being who's come up from probably hell, who's probably been raised in hell, is full of rage, full of violence and sadism, is going to get you when your hands are full of shopping in the Asda car park, or when you're coming out the restaurant with your girlfriend. He's not going to get you when you're ready. He's going to get you when he's ready. And your adherence and love of techniques and the little bits and pieces, like, because people come to me with this all the time, like, do you know about this author? And do you know about this system? And Richard, have you heard of this technique? And I'm like, I don't want to be that arrogant P word who's just like, well, have you used it? Like, why are you asking me? If it's so wonderful, show me the results. If it's so great, show me the thousands of people that you're just lasering. This girl has revolutionized psychology by just lasering people with childhood trauma, left, right, and center. It's the same thing that people have been claiming about neurolinguistic programming for years. And they go, Richard Grannon's a defender of NLP. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I know how to attack NLP better than any of you do. Show me the results. Is it good? Sure. Amongst a bunch of very naive, very blunt tools, it's somewhat better sometimes, and sometimes it's worse. Where's the results? But Richard, you haven't heard about the process where you put your finger in your ear and you spin around leftwards, singing happy birthday backwards on the 31st of the month. And I'm like, well, you know, bully for you. Go ahead. Don't ask me wherever I've heard. Just do it. Do it with your clients. Do it for yourself. If it's amazing, I'll hear about it. Believe me. If you're changing the world, I'll hear about it. So this is nerd mentality. It's all, which way do we go? So this way, we're looking at techniques and we're going, it's ideology will save me. And I'm just sat here going, maybe it's my age, man, but I've never seen that. Like in any field. No. The system saved me. Nah, didn't. It didn't. And then you have the other side, which is you save you. There's no ideology. There's no techniques. There's no system. Look, not that no technique will not work. Of course, techniques work under the right circumstances. You could have, this is another principle from martial arts. You can have a mediocre therapist using a top tier techniques that are peer reviewed. All the research is done. These are the best, and you'll get crap results. You have a charismatic therapist that you really have rapport with and you trust as a figure of authority, and they're using mediocre techniques on you. Who do you think is going to get you better results, guys? So the nerd mentality will say it's the superior techniques, but the people who've actually, to extend this metaphor, the people who've been in brawls, it's not techniques that gets you through a brawl. It's not, there's no techniques that get you through a brawl. Somebody's trying to like mash your head in a nightclub. You don't get out of it through superior techniques. Similarly, if you're doing coaching or therapeutic work or counseling with somebody and they've got really serious problems and you're in a brawl with their demons, with their childhood trauma, and you get through it with a degree of success, tell me it was techniques. Tell me. Lie to me that it was techniques. It wasn't techniques. It was you. You got them through. You pulled them out of it. So now we're over here. It's the individual. Somewhere between the two, there is truth. Okay, techniques are good. Techniques are good. Strategies are good. Principles and individuals are better. Do you want to know why I think this is? Again, a little bit of Zen-like nihilistic existentialism with a smile. There's no reason to not be cheerful because the world is a beautiful place. And if all we have is the world and each other, that's more than enough, in my humble opinion. Not so humble opinion. It's more than enough. Rejoice. It's great. It's great. But we've got to get over the illusion. We've got to get past Maya. And we've got to go, oh, this is it. Yeah. Oh, don't panic. It's cool. It's all good. This is the way it's supposed to be. Now you can enjoy your life. Now you can enjoy the time you have instead of chasing waterfalls. So if you rely on principles in the individual, you're going to go much, much further, but it sucks because it's harder and it burns more calories and it's more difficult. And it's look, I mean, I speak to the therapists and to the coaches and the counselors as well here. We encourage clients universally, I believe, in all systems to be humble and to be courageous. True or no? It's we that also need to be humble and courageous. In the face of pain, in the face of a human being who's suffering, our degrees, our books, our whatever it is, what do they mean? What do they mean to these, to the pain that the person's in, to the demons of childhood trauma? They mean nothing. They mean nothing. Don't hide. Don't hide behind that. Just be courageous and be vulnerable appropriately in a boundaried way and be humble. So, wow, okay, this is actually pretty overwhelming. This is pretty scary. Don't worry. I'm not going to abandon you. We'll get through this together. This must suck an awful lot more for you than it does for me. Ha ha ha. It's called having a sense of humor. It's called being human and not pretending to be, a brain in a jar or some superior intellectual being who floats around the ceiling. You put your socks on and every 24 to 36 hours when you've eaten enough food, you have to go to the toilet. What are you trying to fool, man? Like, who are you trying to fool? So you got to level with people and you got to say, yeah, life. Wow. Damn. What a trip. That's a ride. What happened? Wow, that sucks. That's terrible. That's pain. That's suffering. That's trauma. That must really hurt you. Okay. But I'm here. I'm here. It is scary. You must be scared. It is scary. But I'm still here. We'll figure it out. I don't know how. I don't have a system. I don't have a book you should read. I have some systemic ideas and a couple of books which we can try, but it won't be that saves you. It'll be you and me figuring it out. And it's going to be mainly you. It's going to be mainly you because it's inside of you. It's not inside of me. It's not inside of anybody else. But I believe you can do it. I know that you can do it. So you put the trust and the responsibility back into the client, back into the individual. So philosophically speaking, we have to set ourselves. So I quoted Nietzsche before because it's an authentic philosopher and a psychologist, one of the earliest psychologists. If you have a good enough reason why, you can find any how. The techniques, they matter, but what matters is your reason for doing it. If you have a reason for doing it, you'll find a way. But you must have that tenacious resolve that I will find a way. I will beat this. I am pretty good at this. And I have to tell you, if I had a client who just didn't have the resolve that they were going to get better, there wasn't much I could do because now we're over here again. They're looking for something or someone to put ideology or techniques or something or guru spirit into them so that they're better. And I'm like, there's nothing I can't do that. I can't do that. It must come from you. There must be will. There must be will. We're back to philosophy again. There must be something called the will to heal, the will to thrive. And I think as in the field of psychology, we would do much better if we were honest with clients about that. I know some schools are. Some schools are very, very, very clear with this. And it's actually part of their, it's an explicit and it's not a soft boundary thing. Like you have to do this with clients, but it's not enough. Like all of us should be doing it. Saying to the client, you must have the will to get through this. I can't give you the will. Everything else I give you, I'll guide you. I'll listen to you. I'll be there for you. But it's got to come from you. And you must have the will to get through it. So there's the will. And we need a reason why. Why are you going to get through this? Why? What's going to make you get up and do stupid journaling exercises or affirmations or stupid, painful, disruptive therapy sessions or like none of it is particularly fun. We can make it funner, but it's a drag, man. It's hard. These are hard emotions to deal with. So when it comes to the inner critic in particular, I want us to have it set philosophically as to what we're talking about and how we start. So anything, I said this a lot in my interview with Nova Cotton, like anything I tell you that's prescriptive is subservient to the guiding principles. So we'll get into the prescriptive and we'll get into the guiding principles. When we talk about inner critic, what are we talking about? If you just looked at this, if we hold hands with philosophy as we walk into the maze and we try not to let its hand go, how would you describe this to people who are only into philosophy? We're talking about an inner part of the self that only ever offers criticism and is hypervigilant to anything that we, the individual, do wrong. And then a voice pipes up that over criticizes you for what you've done. It cherry picks only the bad from all the good that you've done. You said, look, and it says, look at this, focus on this, and feel bad about it. Fair enough. If it's not, say in the comments, timestamp it, and just be like, Richard, at this point, 29, 26, actually what you should have said is X, Y, Z. And, I'll go through the comments in a few days' time and I'll acknowledge it. And then if you're right, I'll take what you said and use it without crediting you and then just pretend it was mine all along because that's how I roll. I just steal people's stuff and pretend it's mine because apparently that's what we're doing out here, kids. It's YouTube. You just blatant theft, left, right, and center. But seriously, if there is something, timestamp it and tell me. I will try to respond over the next few days. So there's a voice. Where's it come from? Broadly speaking, philosophers, broadly speaking, what happens in childhood is that as we little humans walk around in the world, we need to know what to do. And we have, Noam Chomsky said there was a language acquisition device in the brain, the LAD. It's what he got famous for, was talking about language acquisition devices that makes a child acquire language more rapidly. So let's say it has a moral guidance system device, and it operates like a sat nav, and it takes the child towards the things it should be doing based on learned values, and it takes the child away from things it should not be doing based on learned unvalues or anti-values. So the moral guidance system functions like a sat nav. How does the child get the software into this hardware called the moral guidance system? By looking, by listening, by interacting, by learning. All day, every day. When they sleep, all they're doing, really, I claim, when they're very young, is processing the data that goes into this moral guidance system, the behavioral guidance system, the sat nav for what to do in the world. So who do they look to? Well, they look primarily to their primary caregivers, their parents, but they can look to any adult in the environment that has power, that they sense as having power. And they're very aware when they're very small. They're more aware of power than they are of reason. So they'll listen to the most powerful person in the room, not the rightest person in the room. Okay, so still cool with philosophy, still holding hands with philosophy as we walk through this labyrinth. We've not drifted off into poorly translated German words. I only found out recently that superego is not what it is in German. It's a much easier word. It's something like, it's not even ego. I think it's self. I think Freud's original German was über self or over self. Well, translates as over self. I'm like, why don't we use that? Why is I gotta be telling people, when I mean superego, I don't mean like Superman. Every effing time I say the superego and people go, oh, you mean narcissist because they're super egoic. I'm like, no. But if we just translated it as the self and the over self, it would have been fine. So we've not done any of that. We've not gone into psychoanalytic language and word salad. So good. So here we have a child and they're recording every day that they're awake from the parents, the adults around them, information that functions as software that goes into the sat nav that helps them to map reality. Jordan Peterson did a book called Maps of Meaning. I would claim that this is the first iteration in a human being's life of the maps of meaning. It's going into this little child's sat nav of the world. So when I say a moral philosophy, I also mean a value-based philosophy, and I mean a meaning-based philosophy. So the child is actually creating a map of meaning that functions as a philosophical approach to the world, because here I make another claim. You have a philosophy. You might not think you do, but you do. You have your rules. You have your coordinates. You might have a crap philosophy. You might have a weak philosophy. You might have an evil philosophy that's inverted. I don't know, but you have one. You have a map. So therefore you have a philosophy. You have a sense of value. Even if your thing is like broad scale genocide, you still have a value system. It's just corrupted. It's just messed up. So this is the first iteration, I would say, of Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, is in the sat nav that a child takes on. Who's it looking at? It's looking at the adults. It's going through the world and it looks at the adults, and this little moral guidance system device, just like Chomsky's language acquisition device, it sits next to it in the brain. There's two little black boxes when you do an X-ray of a child's brain, and they're in the frontal lobes. And this one's like Chomsky's over here with the language acquisition device, and over here is the maps of meaning device, the moral guidance device, the sat nav. They're about this big. That's not true. What I'm saying to you is that's a lie. That's a big lie. That's not a thing. And what happens is over time is it acquires more and more software, and it gets software upgrades with every new experience, with every day, with every month, with every year. Software upgrade, software upgrade, software upgrade, and the sat nav should get better. Here's the problem. If the parents and the adults in the environment are sane, sane, not neurotic, not with their own sat nav corrupted by trauma or torture or evil, then they would want for the children, even if the child isn't theirs, but the child is a member of the tribe, they would want for the child to have a good sat nav. That would mean that, you know, the child doesn't go and play with snakes and tigers, because that would result in the child's death. Nor does the child go and play with cocaine and heroin, because that could result in the child's death. The child should stay to the areas on the map that it's used to, the safe places where there is other children, where there's other adults, where there's protection, where there's food, warmth, safety, family. That's a good map. That keeps the child safe. Sane people want to keep children safe. Sane people don't want to exploit children for their ends. They want children to launch like missiles up and away from them to a better destination, a higher destination, to wherever they got to. That, I think, would be a sane thing for adults to. This should be the proper approach to children. They should be moving higher than we did. They should do better than we did. That would be the hope. They could have a better experience of life with less trauma and less pain. So when we say heal the inner critic, what we mean is that the child was around people who didn't give positive feedback and good data to put into the device. They gave bad data. How did they do that? Hitting the child will do it. Using them for sex will do it. Giving them drugs and alcohol will do it. I mentioned hitting. Frightening them, terrifying them, shaming them, guilting them, torturing them, throwing them out, giving them no love, giving them no food, giving them no shelter. Abuse, basically. Any form of abuse. It becomes an internalized message that the child, as it grows into an adult, experiences as a message it's giving itself. Because the black box of the sat-nav is now talking to the self, or to use better translations of Freud, the over-self is now talking to the self-self. The super ego is now talking this, the ego. The over self is now talking to the self, and it's saying what the parents, the adults in the child's sat nav maps of meaning acquiring years told it. So what's one of the coordinates on a traumatized child's map? You're a piece of crap. You're not lovable. You deserve pain. We stop right there. So imagine the child is now, it operates the meaning acquisition device, the onboard sat nav for morality, value, and what else did I say? Morality, value, and meaning. And everything is now filtered through a primal coordinate on the map, because the map is broken. The map is now broken. Malfunctioning bad map. You are not lovable. That's primary. So the earlier the message goes in, the more repeated it is, the more trauma there is, and the more traumatic the message, the more powerful it is. And it takes precedent over other messages. So the child becomes, I don't know, a 22-year-old young adult, and he is approached by someone who says, I love you. And this creates a huge amount of distress, confusion, angst, self-loathing, and rage in him. Why? Because his sat-nav says, intrinsically, raw coordinate, you are unlovable. So now what's happened, without using any psychobabble, still holding hands with my philosopher friends, we have this grinding of the gears. I'm unlovable. This person's telling me they love me. I'm unlovable, but this person's definitely telling me they love me. What can I do about this? Well, I could change my map just like that, because that's how easy it is. Why is the map so hard to change? Well, obviously what I just said was sarcasm. It was a joke. And we all know that joke because we know how hard it is to change the map. Why is it hard to change the map? Probably something to do with the survival instinct, something to do with evolution, something to do with the necessity of keeping clear of danger. If you learned it as a child, I think whoever designed it, I can't remember the guy's name who designed the meaning acquisition device that sits in a child's frontal lobe. I can't remember. Why is it a guy, Richard? Why couldn't it have been a girl? It could have been a person. I don't remember the person's name. Let's not assume their gender. I don't remember the conscious, individuated, human or non-human. There's no need to be such an anthropocentrist. Arrogant. Maybe it wasn't human. Oh, you said it. I mean, damn it. I knew I couldn't keep my virtue signaling going. I knew I'd fall off. Somebody designed it, and they didn't. Somebody designed it, and they designed it so that if you got the messaging earlier in your childhood, assume that the message is true. Bit of a design fault, that. But he, she, or they definitely made that mistake. If it comes in childhood, assume it's true. If it comes from a higher authority, assume it's true. If the higher authority has a title, a hat, or a cloak, or a scepter, assume it's true. And on that point, I'm only half joking. We are extremely subservient to authority. Weirdly, creepily fawning and subservient to authority. I can only assume it's some sort of a hardware or software fault in whoever designed it, he, she, or they. And what that means for us is that we walk around with this thing called a harsh inner critic. We internalized messages, explicit and implicit, philosophy friends. People who know psychology know this, but for my philosophy friends, the child doesn't have to be hit. The child doesn't have to be told you're useless. The child can actually just be ignored or given very, very mixed signals. And the child internalizes, the child internalizes an assumption that says, I'm not lovable. Because it seems to be the case that we're born into the world, like most animals are, well, like all animals are that we're aware of, with certain expectations. And if they're not met, we're not blank slates. We don't just go, oh, well, I guess that's not what we're doing in reality. One of them, I'm guessing a bird is born expecting its bird mum to go cheep, cheep and to put worms in its mouth, right? Not a biologist, not an evolutionary psychologist, doing the best I can. I think it seems reasonable to assume that when humans are born into the world, they expect to be held. And we know that, well, we can say it is known through the published research because by deduction, because if the child isn't held, they're not well, they can die just from not being held. Even if they are given everybody knows this from the orphanages in Romania, or even if and in China, even if their nutritional needs are met, their sunlight needs are met, and everything else is met, and they're kept clean, and they're given jabs, and they're given the food, and if they're not held, the immune system doesn't get strong, and they die. So we can say we need to be held. We need probably to be not just given food through a drip, but given food in a way that is associated with love. So that we have, what would it be called? Trying to remember. My Robert Anton Wilson and Tim Leary, they came up with something. A circuit, so that we have a circuit that combines nourishment and love. I think you're supposed to get that. I think you're supposed to be held. And we also know from the research, you're supposed to look at people's faces. Like humans are supposed, like a baby, have you ever picked up a baby and you just looked in its face and you're like, babies are so cute. And you went, oh, oh. You don't go, oh, you don't look at a baby and go, oh, you're so cute. You usually like raise your voice a little bit higher. And then you go, ah, oh, and you look into the baby's eyes and you smile. And the baby goes, and you go, oh, he coughed, it's so sweet. And then the baby goes, ha ha, and laughs, and you go, ha, and you laugh. It's lovely, great, fantastic. We all enjoy that, but actually it's essential to the baby's brain development. And it's not, I'll be honest with you, the last time I looked the research into this was 2016, but they were saying that if you just didn't get that facial contact, like face to face, it could leave you with really severe developmental problems. So we come into the world with needs. And if those needs are not met, if it is communicated to us explicitly or implicitly that we're not lovable, even if that includes being ignored or just not looked at enough, nobody's hitting you and nobody's telling you you're useless, but nobody looks at you. Or when you speak, 30% of the time people act like they just can't hear you. It will make you a bit neurotic. You'll maladapt. You'll be like, oops, something's wrong. So my point was, we probably as animals come into the environment with a certain baseline expectation for what we should have, in the same way that a bird is born expecting mummy and daddy to be saying cheep cheep and then vomiting half digested worms into their open house. That was unnecessary but fun. So that means that we end up with an inner critic. What does it take then to heal this inner critic? Well, we've said that there's a part of us that's on board. And unfortunately, not only is it on board, it's been on board since childhood. We've developed a personality, coping strategies, and a whole map of the world around this trauma and around this scar tissue. And people don't like to change. As I said before, there is a resistance to change, probably something to do with survival mechanisms. Like if you learned that and it was true before, just go right ahead and assume it's true forevermore. Just go ahead and do that. Just assume it's always going to be true. Okay. Can it be changed? Yes. I know that it can because I've lived it. I used to have a ferocious inner critic, to the point where at times in my life, I actually thought I developed like a split personality, like I had an alter, because it was so overwhelming and so hard to live with. I mean, really, like I wanted that out. It was very, very painful to live with. And it's not that it never happens now. It's not that I never get a voice in my head that goes, oh, you dickhead, every once in a while. But it's way, 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 way less. Very, very, very infrequent. And I try to stick to the discipline of not speaking to myself the way I won't let myself speak to myself the way that I wouldn't speak to my nephews. One is 1.5. The other is nearly 4. Maybe he's 4. He's 4. And I wouldn't say to them, you effing useless, effing F, you F, and be really violent and aggressive with them the way I was with myself. So I try and maintain that discipline. I'm like, would you say that to, would you speak? No, so you can't, no, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You can't say it like that. And I go, okay. And then I make myself say it in a way that is what I would say to somebody who had made a mistake or had needed to do something differently or whatever it was. So how? And now I've presented you with an idea of the problem. Let's go through how we fix this and keep it within the realm of philosophical coordination. 1, the nature of this damaged sat-nav that's running inside of your brain is that it will make your emotions go up and down. The technical term in psychology for this is emotional dysregulation. It is, if you're a philosopher, keep holding hands with me, you will want to know this about psychology. It is a term not used frequently enough. It should be far more common, because whatever the psychological issue is, whatever the mental, when people say anything that is hashtag mental health, you can go ahead and assume 80% of the time they mean emotional dysregulation. And what they've gone ahead and done most of the time is they've diagnosed themselves. What they mean is what they actually, if you translate it, so somebody says, I have anxiety, I am bipolar, I have ADHD, I have the, what they actually mean is my emotions are dysregulated, but I don't have the language and the understanding to say that. My feelings are dramatically out of control. It's not culturally acceptable to say, I don't want to go to work because I don't feel good, or I don't do intimate relationships because my feelings are wonky. Like, there's no what if we don't have the cultural meme for that, it's like trying to speak the unspoken. You can't do that. That's pure philosophy, by the way. You're not allowed. Das ist verboten. You just can't say that. So people don't. What they do is they find a prescribed way. Prescribed means pre-written, a pre-written way that is a pre-existing social construct that is socially acceptable. And then they take whatever symptoms and feelings they're experiencing and they just shoehorn it into that. They're like, all right, I don't fucking know what I'm feeling. What's wrong with you? Oh, I have a social anxiety disorder. Did a clinician tell you that? No. WebMD. Dr. What was his name? You don't know my doctor. His name is Jean Wikipedia. He is a French doctor. And we just bluff it. Most people who you speak to, especially online, they're just bluffing. They really don't know. But they mean, and it is perfectly valid because it's an extremely common and very uncomfortable experience, emotional dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation has the word emotion in it. Some people who are a bit tough, more often than not men, will be like, I don't have that. I don't have that. It sounds weak. It's got the word emotion in it, so it couldn't apply to me. Well, just remember this. When we're saying emotional dysregulation, we mean physiological dysregulation, because if you are emotionally dysregulated, you are hormonally dysregulated. The HPA axis gets out of whack. So, you can't observe that, but you can observe the effects of trauma on the hypothalamus. Just trauma. So it actually changes the shape of your brain in a way that can be measured. It shrinks the volume of the hippocampus or the hypothalamus. The hippocampus. It changes the volume of it. So when you're emotionally dysregulated, emotional dysregulation can not only have the effect of altering your hormonal system and your production of neurotransmitters and everything else, it can actually change the shape of your brain. So when I'm saying, oh, you're emotionally dysregulated, don't be like, oh, that sounds like a moody. No. I'm saying that your system, the HPA axis is one of the things the HPA axis does is it assesses threat. And then it tries to see what an appropriate response to that threat would be, proportionate and appropriate. But it's not cycling properly. It's wobbled off its axis. And so now it's giving you messages. It's like, oh, they're being rude to me. Oh my God, I think they want to start a fight with me. Oh, I think she's talking about me. That you say, ideas of reference, paranoid ideation, hypervigilance to threat, what is it called? Persecution complex. These are the psychological terms that we rubber stamp on emotional dysregulation and dysregulation of the HPA axis. It's hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal gland axis. And the idea of it is to just not let you get eaten by bears and to not let you fall off a cliff edge. Because if you're on the cliff edge, you should realize that that's dangerous and not be like, I think I can fly, to keep you safe. And also, when appropriate, to make you aroused, and also when appropriate to make you, all the other things as well. But if it's dysregulated, it's a physical problem. It's no joke. Being emotionally dysregulated is not some lightweight issue. When you come and talk to me about the full range of mental health issues, most of them are about emotional dysregulation. So what is the solution to healing the inner critic? Number one, we really need to work towards emotional re-regulation. How do we do that, Richard? Well, I shall tell you. Again, it sucks. It's not fun. But you need to become au fait with your emotions again. You need to start validating them. It's very simple. You say, I have a feeling, and it counts. My feelings count. Now, I'm not encouraging you to put feelings over facts. I'm not encouraging you to go into self-indulgent navel gazing. I'm not encouraging you to adopt a very hypersensitive and sentimentalized way of life. I'm sure you can tell from the way I speak, that's not how I live, but I damn sure acknowledge my feelings. And I don't see that as weakness. In fact, I see it as strength. I am the king of my kingdom. I am the emperor in my empire. When my emotions come and my feelings come, they bang on the door of the court. It's like Game of Thrones up in here. And I'm on the throne with the big dragon. And there's banging on the door. Now, emotions that are agitation emotions are agitating, and they're banging too loud and they're annoying. Now, I can either turn up the music in the hall and do some festivities and do a bit of singing and merrymaking and, you know, drinking and try and drown it out, but they don't go anywhere. Those messengers who are my servants, they're there for me. They're there to warn me about something. Now, they could be wrong. But if I'm getting the agitated banging on the door, this is one example of an emotion, like an emotion of agitation. I'm talking about anxiety in code, for those of you who didn't get it. Anxiety in code. Bang, 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 bang. Open the door. Bang, 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 bang. Open the door. There's a threat. There's an army coming. There's a threat. There's an army coming. They could be wrong, but I still open the door. I don't drown them out. I'm like, I don't want to get anxious. I'm not going to think about it. I go, come in. Come in. What? What is it? And they go, that's terrible. It's very dangerous out there. There's a threat. There's an army of werewolves and it's coming here now. And I go, okay, well, look, I'm not saying that there isn't a threat, but you are anxiety, right? Yes, we're the regiment of anxiety. Good. So what's your job? To be anxious, sire. Right. So sometimes when you're doing your job, you get anxious when there's nothing to be anxious about. Is that true? Do you remember last week when you got anxious and there's nothing there? Oh, yes, sire. Yes. So you have a dialogue, a reasoned dialogue instead of crushing it down. And hey, they could be right. They could be right. There could be something there that you should be getting anxious about. I see this a lot. I'll give this one example and then I'll move on because I'm long-winded. After 57 minutes, I'm sure you knew that. One example I see a lot of, especially in modern Western culture and especially in a world that is dominated by the terror of the ro-ro, is small world syndrome. People get anxious because they're not living the life that they should be living. They're not living as the real person that they should be. The walls of their world get smaller and smaller as they get more and more comfortable, and their anxiety levels go up and they go, why am I getting anxious? I'm actually pretty safe and things are okay here. You're anxious because that's not how you're supposed to live. And your unconscious is looking at your life and going, oh my God, the way we lived for the last year is the way we're going to live for the next year. We're not going to thrive. We're not going to grow. We're not going to reach anything approximating our true potential. Let's send feelings of agitation. So when you get feelings, if you want to become emotionally regulated, you should validate them. You should say, number one, you must have a philosophical coordinate that says feelings are okay. That isn't hyper-indulgent. We don't need to defy Ben Shapiro's commandment number 3 with facts not caring about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't care about your feelings. Facts are more important than feelings, for sure. But feelings count for a lot. And he's never said, just ignore how you feel. He never said, ignore depression, ignore anxiety, ignore fear. He's just saying, don't let that take primacy, because that's not a sane life. We can't, well, maybe a few of us can afford to, like, if you're very creative, you're an artist or an actor, maybe you can be feelings first and the rest of the tribe will support you and be like, that's okay. A number of us get to do this. But if we all do that, well, nothing's going to work. Like, we'll just be running around going off our feelings and that won't work. But that's different to saying within a disciplined framework and a reasoned philosophy that's been figured out, that you know what your feelings are and you say, okay, that's okay. Or like I mentioned anxiety, which actually in context could be seen as manly. So for the boys, what's an unman? I'm sad. There's nothing manly about sadness, right? Just go, well, I'm really, really sad. Okay, I don't want to be sad. Why? Well, when I'm sad, I'm weak. When I'm sad, I'm vulnerable. If I'm sad and the ninjas come, how will I defend my family? I'll just be on the couch being depressed whilst the ninjas are throwing poison shuriken at the dog, right? You don't feel sad. So what do you do with sad? You have to find a way of accepting sadness because, newsflash, you're going to feel sad in this life because you're going to lose things. Things are going to happen to you. And if you're good at sad, which is a skill, by the way, if you're good at grieving, life is easier and you're saner and you'll be stronger for other people. There's no such thing that, as I'm aware of, I've studied a fair amount of different warrior cultures from different periods in time. I'm actually not aware of one that just says a man can never feel sad. I'm starting to wonder if it's a uniquely modern phenomenon. I mean, just take, for example, the poetry. The Japanese samurai were not allowed to write. They were expected to write it. If you look at Zen haiku, it's extremely melancholy. It's all about the fleeting, transient, finite nature of life. It's beautiful because it's extremely sad. It's like condensed sadness. It's like the crack cocaine of sadness. Go and read some Zen haiku from the 14th, 15th, 16th century. It's incredibly sad and very poignant because of it. It doesn't have to be just seen as a debilitating emotion. Even warriors grieve. Even men can feel sad and can grieve. There's a whole, I could go through, maybe I should do a video where we just go through all the different emotions and how men aren't allowed to feel sad and women aren't allowed to feel angry, and how we can, you know, philosophically, poetically, creatively rewrite that back into the software and go, this is okay. When we have accepted that we have feelings, because you do, and we work with them and we can listen to them a little bit and assume that they are communicating something of value to us, because we are of value, all of us. What I'm saying here is, I'm not saying all of us are of value. We are, that's not my message. I'm saying, as you're sat there, all of you is of value. It's entirely codependent and extremely unhealthy for you to say to me, I'm of value when I'm doing good, when I'm doing my job, when I'm being a good soldier, when I'm being a good mother, when I'm being a good martyr, then I'm of value. The rest of the time, I'm a piece of shit. That's not hashtag mental health, homies. All of you, like all parts of you, are of value, including these feelings. Confusing, ego irritating feelings, which they're not in line with my self-image and my story of who I am. And, you know, I'm not a person who feels jealous because I'm cool. So why am I feeling jealous right now? Well, maybe you just are a human and you feel feelings sometimes, and maybe that's okay. Maybe, crazy idea, kids. Maybe that's okay. Maybe these feelings are okay. All of them, the worst ones, the worst thoughts that go with the worst feelings are all okay. Actions based on those feelings, that would be a problem. It would be a moral and sometimes a legal problem. You can't just act on your feelings, but you damn sure can have your feelings and you damn sure can have your thoughts. It's fine. So when we accept these things and we work with them, and they're no longer knocking on the door like ignored and unwanted guests, but they're integrated as valued messengers, then we become more emotionally regulated. I'm going over time. The second thing that I recommend people do to heal the inner critic, apart from becoming emotionally regulated, is that you develop internal boundaries. You must learn to say no to yourself. We cannot, as a species, heal, survive, and then thrive by saying yes to every single impulse, every single instinct that we have. We are falling prey to logical fallacy, cognitive bias, sentimentality, and pure emotionality way too much. So everything I just advocated in terms of feelings still must come through a matrix of discipline, still must come through a matrix of boundaries. And the person you need to learn to say no to first and foremost, is yourself. This is how we grow up. Impulse control. Impulse control. This is how you grow up. This is how you start to take responsibility. You can't just do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. You can't just not do a thing that you should be doing because you don't feel like doing it. That's never going to lead you anywhere good. It might feel comfortable in the moment to be numbed out, but it's not going to go anywhere good. So emotionally regulate, assert boundaries with yourself, good internal boundaries. Learn to say no to yourself. Learn to have impulse control. Learn to do critical thinking, where when you think a thought, you critique the thought as you're thinking it. Learn to distinguish between a feeling and a thought. Learn to distinguish between your responsibilities and another person's responsibilities. Don't fall prey to codependency. Don't have somebody come in front of you and go, oh, I wish I had a different iPhone cover. Who would, and then you go, I can buy you one. No, that's not yours. That's not your responsibility. So you set a boundary with yourself. When the impulse comes up to help and to behave in a codependent way, you say, okay, I'm not doing that. You just look at the person like this until they get the message. The third thing that I highly recommend doing is that you alter your sat-nav. You alter your map of life. So we have to actually integrate trauma into the map. Now, philosophers still holding hands, psychologists still holding hands. We're all here together in the labyrinth, yeah? This one's tricky. Not going to lie. This one's tricky. So I seem to be saying something contrary, but stick with it. It's trauma that's altered the map of the sat-nav. It's trauma that's made the sat-nav go off course, and it's got bad coordinates inside of it, and it's developed into this thing called a toxic superego, toxified over self, to use the Freudian psychoanalytic language, or a very harsh inner critic. And the trauma at the core of all this doesn't want to change. But what I'm saying is we have to actually seek to change the whole map itself in order to get to this core trauma. I don't know of a way of bypassing map changing and just going to core trauma without activating very strong unconscious defense mechanisms. Why? Because the unconscious is predominantly focused on your safety. Doesn't really care about much else. Well, no, it does care about much else. But if it's a choice between anything else and safety, your unconscious is choosing safety. Well, that's a problem because it's your unconscious. You can't reason. You can't just talk to it or work your way around it. You can communicate with the unconscious, but it's laborious and it's hit and miss. And time changing the unconscious, well, if you're very skilled, you would still be measuring it in 6-month chapters and years to change the unconscious. That's just the truth. That's the plain truth of it. So we have a map, a philosophy, because I told you everybody has a philosophy because we all have a map of meaning in the Jordan Peterson sense. We all actually already have a map of meaning. We already have a philosophy, whether you like it or not. And it's gotten some twisted coordinates into it. So what do we need to do? Well, this is the kind of like the Greek god's punishment. You have to pull yourself up by your own socks and then fly kind of thing. So you've got the trauma has damaged the map making machine. And now we have to use the map making machine to overcome the trauma. You can do this, but it takes a huge amount of courage and a huge amount of humility. The story of your trauma that you're holding up until now, if you're a person who's watching this video going, I have a terrible inner critic and I want it to stop, how should I put it? Your story of what happened to you, and when I say story, I mean the narrative that holds the coordinates of your philosophy in place, is now part of the problem. Wait, don't switch off just yet. What I'm saying is the way you formulated your life story, what happened to you, who did what to who, how it made you feel. They then did the thing with the then, and also because she said, and that meant, and do, ba, 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 do, do, do. And you know, when you're standing outside of these things as like somebody who's trying to be an engineer to help the person, I've got my own story. But I tell you, after years of working as an engineer outside of these stories and listening to them, I'm very unattached to it. Why? Because if you're very, very, very attached to your story, you get rigid. And if you're rigid with your story and your narrative, it's hard to heal. Why? Because healing is change. Healing is change. Here's something that I believe I can't prove. Not a biologist, not an evolutionary psychologist. Very strong reasons for believing that this is quite literally true. When we heal, we learn. When we learn, we heal. And there's no healing without learning. What does that mean from an evolutionary psychology perspective and a biology perspective? It means something is happening neurologically. The neural pathways that were in place that hold the trauma and the dodgy map in place need to die through lack of use, and new neural pathways need to be laid down, much in the way that a muscle fiber will atrophy and die if it's not used, and new muscle fibers will fire together and wire together if they are being used. Okay, so it becomes kind of a physical problem. You must be willing to change. You must be willing to learn. You must be willing to reformat the story, not just of your trauma, but the story of you. And he isn't finished yet. I thought he was finished. He went on for a very, very long time. He's not finished. The story of you, the story of your trauma, and then, I don't know a way around this, the story of reality itself. I'm saying, you all know that, like, to overcome trauma, you kind of have to become an amateur psychologist. By the time you're done after a few years, you know about psychology. I'm saying, go further. Become a philosopher. Become a philosopher. Reformulate your relationship with reality. Why? Don't do ayahuasca. Don't do mushrooms. Don't do LSDs, psilocybin. Don't do there's a lot of things that people are doing to try and increase their neuroplasticity. And I suspect it's going to be very, very hit and miss. And it's unnecessary. You don't need the risk. Some people get terribly traumatized through these psychedelics. Just, if you want neuroplasticity, you need neuroplasticity, because learning and healing are the same thing. They're both required at the same time, and they both require change. Sorry, you don't need to heal in order to learn. Every time you heal, you will learn, and they both require change. Learning is change. Healing is change. When you dream at night and you're having really weird, vivid dreams, there is a suggestion that that could be because you're in a phase of your life that you're learning. So you're laying down new neural pathways. And if you look at the themes from a Jungian point of view of your dreams, you'll see the new neural pathways that you're laying down. If you analyze, you just look it up online, easy to do. And you go, what did I do today that was related to exploring, difficult feelings or flying away from my responsibilities? And then you look and you go, oh, wow, that's because I set up the new account for the business. And you'll find meaning, you'll find connection. And through that connection, you'll find meaning. So the neuroplasticity that you need is going to be around your story, but it's not just the story of your trauma. It's the story of who you are, and it's the story of reality itself. So I'm saying you're going to have to rewrite all of these. And the more you rewrite them, the more this toxic inner critic, as you've emotionally regulated, as you're setting boundaries with yourself, these things must be done first in order to give you the space to rewrite. So number one, emotionally re-regulate. Number two, set internal boundaries. Number three, dive deep into change, into learning, into healing, through actively embracing as much neuroplasticity as you can. When you go into this phase, you should do everything different, just for the sake of doing it differently. Walk to the shops differently, go to different shops, eat different food, listen to completely new music you never listened to before. Show yourself, show your unconscious at multiple levels that you are willing to change, but not just in some vague, airy-fairy way, like, oh, I changed my friends, I'm no longer with my yoga friends, I'm with my tarot friends. Not cosmetic change. That's not change. You've got to get into the core. You've got to change the fundamental coordinates by which you view reality. And one of the most powerful ways of doing that I know of is to formulate a brand new moral philosophy. Try and answer the following questions. Don't worry about coming up with actual answers. Nobody expects you to. But by at least wrestling with them, you'll learn what is good. When we talk about trauma, what is good? When we talk about trauma, what is good? What is bad? What is evil? What is the force of evil in the world? What is it? When we say something's evil, what does it mean? Just journal every day. Give it 15, 20 minutes every day. What do these questions mean? What is good? I don't know. What is evil? Stuff that hurts? Fine. Write it down. How should a person live their life? Try and come up with answers to these questions. Why? Because you want to engage in full-blown neuroplasticity. You want change. You want to resolve this trauma and live a better life. And also because all of us, in order to be free from mental health issues, emotional dysregulation, anxiety, and depression, must come up with a better philosophy of life than the one that we just got randomly through being alive. You come out your mum, you bang your head a few times, suddenly you're a dorky, gawky adolescent going, oh, this is cringe. And then you're a useless person in your 20s. And then you're a depressed person in your 30s going, I thought I was going to be a rock star by now. And then that's life. Like you're just moving through life, spinning, falling, tumbling, bumping into things in the dark. Don't do it. This is real shadow work. This is what we can call real Jungian individuation work looks like. Formulate a philosophy as an adult. It can be wrong. You can formulate a new one in 6 months' time or a year, or whatever you want. But formulate one. You must. You must. You already did. You already are every day. If you're depressed, I don't want to say anything too controversial in this video, more than I already have. If you're consistently depressed, believe me, I know, because depression is one of the things that I suffered with for a long time. If I have a predilection towards slipping backwards, it is not into, I mean, I had a lot of mental health issues. It's not addiction. It's not OCD. It's not anger management. Number one is depression. If I'm going to fall backwards, if I'm going to slip, it'll be depression. But depression is rooted in a depressed set of coordinates. I'm not saying that depression is not biological. I am 100% convinced there's a biological element to depression, 100%. And it doesn't matter whether the cause is biological. I don't know. I mean, nobody really knows yet. We will probably know one day, but I'm effing certain the effect is biological. If you have depression, it can be physically painful. It can be physically painful to move. It's crushing. It's brutal, mind-numbing, soul-sucking. The infinite void is me and I am the void. Depression is debilitating, utterly debilitating. And of course, like what I said before about emotional dysregulation, if the feeling is that strong, of course your hormones are going to alter. Of course your HPA axis is going to alter. The endocrinal system is going to alter. I mean, you know, your behavior follows, and you're not eating what you should be eating. You're not hydrating properly. Your health goes to shit, and you're on a downward spiral. But what I meant to say is, if you remain in that state for long enough, the map of meaning alters, and it reattaches to it creates reattaches is too vague. It creates new attachments and new neural pathways to the experience of depression itself. And before long, you're going, this is reality. This is the reality. This isn't transient. It's not a temporary response to external circumstances or grief or a growth phase I'm going through. Do you know what I'm saying? You start to have traumatic attachments to the trauma of the experience, or anxiety, or drug addiction, or a painful divorce, or the loss of a loved one, or a physical illness. All of these things we can reattach in a way that doesn't help, but that the brain thinks is the right thing to do, because that's your life. If you're living depressed for 4 months, of course your brain's going to reattach, and you're going to end up with new coordinates, which will be the philosophy of a depressed person, or the philosophy of somebody who has this issue or that issue. We must challenge our philosophies. We must challenge our coordinates. We have to challenge our maps if we're to thrive and if we're to do better. And let's take a look at the world, folks. I think we can all agree we must do better. I'll take a couple of questions and then I'm going to wrap this up. If anybody has a question, make it one sentence long and then a question mark. Kerry, have you ever seen the sail which is hijacked by a parasite? No, that's poetic. A sail hijacked by a parasite. Honestly, it's like some psychedelic sci-fi image. It makes it flash to be eaten by a bird. Then the parasite can fly inside the bird. This is just trippy, man. It makes it flash to be eaten by a bird. And the parasite can fly inside. A snail! It's a snail! So when I said Zen haiku before, did I mean haiku? Is that the poetry? This is a koan. This is a Zen koan. Have you ever seen the sail hijacked a snail? Right. No, I've heard about things like this though. Horrifying. Utterly horrifying. Question, how can we grieve properly? I love this question. I have different tutorials online. One of them's on the Fortress Mental Health YouTube channel. What I would recommend for somebody who's in the process of grieving is to focus on becoming much more emotionally literate. So you can define a full scale of exquisitely nuanced and literate and verbose ways of saying I'm sad by looking up the synonyms of sadness and being like, well, is it like, what am I feeling right now? Am I disappointed? Am I angry with them because they're not here? And then you just get deep into the emotional literacy on one side. And there's emotional literacy exercises, as I say, on Fortress Mental Health YouTube channel. And then the other thing is you really need to be very, very, very patient with this, with yourself. And during this period of patience that you're showing yourself, you must show yourself self-compassion. And you must show yourself the same amount of compassion that you would show a grieving child. You cannot have a double standard and be, oh, you know, I would be much more calm and much more patient and loving with like a 15-year-old who lost, you know, a mother. But I'm not going to show myself that patience because why? Well, F me. You know, I don't deserve it. I'm useless and terrible and wretched. And, you know, you can't do that. So patience, self-compassion, emotional literacy. Patience, because in my experience of grieving for people who I loved who passed away, it always took longer than I thought. And it always showed up in ways I was never expecting. It was always, I mean, the one thing I heard about grieving that actually I found was true was it comes in tidal waves. It seems to go and then it would just come back suddenly and unexpectedly. And in strange ways, I had strange feelings, things that I couldn't predict. But to the best of my ability, I tried to accept them and just go, oh, I didn't know I even felt this way about this situation with this person and the thing with the thing. And then you just accept it. Try to accept these things. I'll take one more question. Somebody started a question with question. Okay. Being kind to yourself is something I never did do, but it's something we all should do, says Tanisha. 100% agree. 100% agree. Dagabainator. Question, is journaling sufficient to overcome a persistent malaise or brain fog? I would suggest with all of these things that you find online and YouTube videos and courses and everything, you should always consider speaking to a specialist, a qualified clinician, especially one who specializes in whatever issue you have. So you said like brain fog. There are directories of counselors and psychotherapists online. And if you speak English, you know, depending on the state, some states won't do it unless you're inside the state because they're not covered by insurance. But there are many, many, many English-speaking therapists and counselors online. You don't need to be from the same country as them, and they will speak to you. And you probably should do that. Certain things here need a qualified professional to guide you through it. Not that having a qualified professional is 100% guarantee of anything, but generally speaking, speak to a professional as well. Speak to a qualified clinician. Okay, so I went over, no surprise there. I hope that you found that useful, folks. I just want to say thank you very much for all your time and your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon indeed. Cheers.